So I am Tiffany Jones. I did write this book, a quick little story. I was cutting flowers, taking them to the wholesale market, and I found some zinnias that people really seemed to respond to. And they were this really pretty, kind of like this kind of color here. And zinnias typically come in really bright colors. Most of them are sold for landscape purposes. But in my work selling cut flowers, some florists prefer softer, more muted colors like this, especially for weddings, the blush whole thing. So I took mine to the flower market one day and I'm a little nervous. I'm thinking, oh, let's see what they think. Oh, I hope they like them. And I'm walking along with these beautiful professional rows of flowers going, oh man, these are so different. I don't know how they're going to respond. And when I got to my stall, where my wholesaler was, someone came up from behind me and just ripped the flowers out of my bucket, tucked them under her arms, and said, "These are mine." And she just went into the cooler further into the wholesaler's stall. And I was in shock. What just happened? And I'm telling you this because you just never know. You just never know if you're going to fail or succeed at anything. And it turned out to be that there is a huge demand for these kind of colors in zinnias. Zinnias are so easy to grow. That's why I started breeding them, by the way, because they're really easy to grow. They're easy to find all the parts. And I just want to encourage you that whatever you're doing in your garden or your pots or your home, to keep going, because every plant person in the world, no matter how professional or educated they are, struggles sometimes. So with zinnias, though, I think you're going to have a fabulous time because they're incredibly easy. And let's see, I'm pressing and nothing is happening. Let's see. Nope, it's not working. Do a little dance for you. It was working when we tested it earlier, I promise. But this isn't the worst thing in the world to look at, right? These are all flowers that I grew, and I was they're not all things that I have bred at all. Some of these are very well known, and but I grew them I took all the pictures for my book, so I had to grow all those flowers. So he already went through this. I've done a bunch of stuff. I'm old enough to have some experience. I started in ornamental horticulture, but we had my third year, we had to pin 300 bugs. Pin means you stick a pin through the bug and put it in a little, and like have it on a, almost, those poster board things. I'm not collecting bugs. People were running around with little jars in their pockets collecting different types of bugs. I was like, no. So I went into landscape architecture. So I understand the difference between flowers for the landscape and flowers for floral design. And then, like I told you, when I found those zinnias that were such a pretty color, I just found them randomly in a variety I grew. And then people responded to them so strongly. I wanted to know how to have them come back. So I saved them. Guess what? They didn't come back. True. So I went, uh-oh, there's something here with all my education I don't understand. And so I went back and I did a whole ton of research, and that's that's what my book is based on. I researched other people's research. It was not available to the public. It was available to people who were really into this stuff. And I had to have help translating some of those really long words. But what I did was compile it all in this book, and it's super easy. My goal was to make it available to anybody. And part of what's so great about zinnias is they are so easy to grow. They are the first plant that was ever grown from seed to bloom in space. If they can do it, we can do it. So they've had other plants, but they didn't start them from seed in space. And look at these. You've got a beautiful view of the Earth, and they did just fine up there. So they've been an important part of research as well. But honestly, they're super easy to grow. They have some different family members, and you may run into some different unusual ones here. Annie's does carry some different varieties. Most of them are Zinnia elegans, That second name is the species name, and Zinnia elegans is the one that you see almost everywhere. It's the one that gets the tallest. You cut it for flowers. Some of them can be quite small and beautiful for the landscape, but they're the ones that are most commonly bred for landscape or cutting. There are some other varieties though. Sometimes they don't have them today, but sometimes Annie's carries Zinnia tenuifolia or spider zinnia, it's called sometimes. It's a red one. You can see it's different from this one here, which is Zinnia hagiana, and then Zinnia grandiflora, and Zinnia, oh, here we are, Zinnia angustifolia, which is a really pretty border one if you want a really pretty little border. Oh my gosh, and they grow past their flowers, so you don't have to deadhead them. They just look gorgeous. Woo! All the time. I get so excited. And then this is Zinnia elegans, and part of the reason I'm showing you this is just to give you a contrast in the way they grow, the size of the flower. This isn't necessarily shorter than this, it's just so everybody could fit in the picture. Here's a little bit closer view of Zinnia hagiana. There's work getting done on those. If you look over here at the arrow, over here it's kind of pointing to that little bit taller one. Oh, is that not in the shot? Oh, sorry, next slide, sorry. Hi, this is Zinnia hagiana. There's work going on with those, but they tend to be a little more curved. They're beautiful in the landscape though, and they just last and last. This is the angustifolia I was telling you about. You can kind of see them right down here. Look at that. Isn't that a beautiful border? And they're just no fuss. Once they're mature, they're water, they're drought resistant. They're just great. And then these are all Zinnia elegans. These are some that I have bred. This is some here on my farm. And look at that. Is there anything prettier? The butterflies love them. The pollinators love them. And there's just nothing better than a field full of zinnias. I live in Gardnerville, Nevada. It's extremely dry. It's about 5,000 feet. Very dry in the summer, sometimes less than 20% humidity, and very hot. It can get up to 105, and zinnias love it. They do great there. There's another one that I was working on called parchment. So let's start with the growing conditions. You want to grow zinnias. This is not the ideal weather for zinnias, by the way. It feels like winter here to me. But your growing conditions, zinnias are what we call tender annuals. They are warm season plants. Think of warm season as the time of year when there's no frost at all. So from now and do you guys get frost here? Little bit, okay. But they don't like it quite this cool. They want the nights about 55 degrees. Most of your warm season things like dahlias, sunflowers, they like the night times a little bit warmer, and the daytime 75 and up is perfect. So they do not want frost. They're warm season, tender annuals. So an annual is a plant that grows its whole season within with less than a year. It grows, it does its thing, it makes its seed, and then it's done. It's not going to come back the next year as a plant. It's kind of like gnats. You know, there's certain flies that only live for a month or whatever. It's like that. That's what annuals are, but much longer. And then they need full sun. So these guys like the heat. Do not plant them in the shade. They can take a little shade, but they don't love it. So the first thing you want to do anytime you're planting anything is to start with your soil. And Prajwal, could you do me a favor and help me out with my next slide? It's a video. It's very, very short. Sorry. The only soil zinnias don't like is boggy and wet. They just don't like that. They don't want to be wet. They like to be moist, but they don't want to be wet. And if you are going to put them in the ground, if you do nothing else, remember this. This is an important point. If you do nothing else and you have worm castings make every plant better. You don't have to add a bit of fertilizer, just add worm castings. I'm sorry? Oh, it's autoplay. No. So we have a little farm here in Nevada, and if you take a picture of this slide, there we go, you can see that we have a rock farm, evidently. You can see all those rocks in there, and watch this right here, and boom, that's a rock getting thrown out. So our soil was pretty bad. We broke it up first, and then we added a lot of things to it. And you can just see, I mean, you don't have to do this. Hopefully you have better soil than we did. But here it goes again, it's just showing you one more time. Look at that. I mean, the rocks. So this one, um, this one also shows how much rock we had. You can plant zinnias in a pot, you can plant them in the ground, you can plant them in a rock farm. We just built the soil up by adding some organic stuff. There it goes. You can see these are our fields here. We do a lot of work to have ours prepped. You do not have to go to these extremes. This is, if nothing else, just add worm casting. So this is our farm after that. We've gotten all the rocks out of the way. Yes, I have arthritis in my back from that now. I don't recommend it. But even though we do stuff with the tiller, we still do, that's my husband back there doing some hand um, forming of those beds. And then I'll just reiterate, I'm just throwing worm castings on here now. If you have worm castings, add them to your soil. If you do it ahead, if you prepare your soil before you put your plants in, add your fertilizer or whatever you need. Um, if you do it ahead of time, you don't have to do it during the season. So we add it to our soil before we plant, and then we never have to fertilize again because I'm lazy and I like it that way. And for us, for you here, for me in Nevada for sure, I'm from Southern California originally, so I get the climate here. Irrigation is a must. You cannot avoid it. They are drought resistant once they are established, but until then, they're going to need water. And you can use a hose, but if you're anything like me, you get distracted when you use your hose to water and you end up watering your dog and playing with the dog instead. So what we do for efficiency is we use something called drip tape, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second. But you don't have to go as far as we do with the drip tape and things like that. But if you just water in the morning early, and if you water the soil and not the leaves of the plant, then you're going to be as efficient as you can be, even if you have to use a hose. We use the drip tape on a valve with a timer. The drip tape is the single most efficient way to water, I think, in the world. Last I heard, you can kind of see how we use it here. And what happens, I'll show that. Oops, I'm going to try and play that again for you. I don't know if it'll let me. There we go. You can see the little holes in the ground there. Can you see those little holes? Not holes, sorry, dark spots. It looks like holes, kind of, doesn't it? That's because it's this tape and it has a little hole in it, and the water literally beads around the tape and then drips into the soil. Nothing is being sprayed into the air. You're not wasting anything. It's not costing you more. It goes right into that soil, and depending on your soil, it kind of makes a nice round. If you could cut the soil in half and look, you'd see there'd be a nice round ball of soil there. It comes in different spacings. There's a great place called Dripworks. I have no affiliation, but they can help you with that if you want to, if you need some irrigation. And then in terms of what plants you're going to use, you can obviously come to Annie's and get a huge selection of zinnias ready to go. This one is, no, I don't know them without looking at the tags because they're all different. This is Raggedy Ann. Raggedy Ann is a beautiful big zinnia that gets 3 to 4 feet tall, comes in pinks and oranges and yellows. It's a really bright, beautiful, kind of a little bit curly, kind of fun. Uh, uh, the bloom is, nice round, but kind of twisted petals a little bit. And then this one over here is Venere's Giant Wine. Venere's Giant is a big, beautiful, sort of dahlia-looking zinnia. It's got big and round and full, and it's gorgeous. The Venere's Giants are standard in the floral world. If you're growing flowers to cut, to sell, or to cut for production, for farmers markets, for anything, these are very, very common. They're uniform, they're big, they're beautiful, they're just really easy to grow and dependable. And then this one over here, I believe, is Venere's Giant Salmon Rose. So this plant will look like this plant in about 3 or 4 weeks. So that's just a different variety. And then in here somewhere is Zowie. That's Queen Red Lime. Queenie Red Lime is a great sort of dusty, rosy ombre, and it's very, but much smaller. And there was one here somewhere, Zowie, That's real pretty. It's yellow with sort of an orangish center, or sometimes orangish with a yellow center. Zowie's another really great one. Some people, like me, like to start their zinnias from seed, however. And so here's my trick. I'm I like, because I save my own seeds and not everything is as mature as maybe it could be, because I'm saving everything, I'm hoarding them and trying to start them all. Instead of tossing things I think might not work, I grow them anyway. I try them. And what I do is I put a couple of wet shop towels in a tray and I get them wet, cover it, put them on a heat mat with a little cushion between them, a towel or something so they don't cook. And then whatever sprouts, you see all the little tails on here, the little white tails on the seeds? I don't know if you guys can see, like right here, that's a sprout. That's the root starting to come out of the seed. And you could easily do that if you wanted to. Now this is what we do. If you want to start seeds, you could do it this way. You can put them directly in soil like they did when they went to the International Space Station. You can do it however you want. That's just one of the fun ways I do it. And then in terms of planting and spacing, I was a little cheeky when I wrote this. So I said, dig a small hole and place the root ball in. Duh, right? I mean, that's not particularly complicated. But when we are doing, I have 3,000 seedlings at home right now. I have 3,000 of those. And some of them are even smaller. And what we do on a big scale is we just take a shovel, turn it upside down, and use the handle. And we put that handle in the center of each one of those dark spots, which is where it's getting irrigated. And we go blink, 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 just walk down the row. And then my plants that I grow in a size like this, I can just pop them out and stick them right in that hole. You are going to have to dig a little bit of a different hole though, because, what happened to our, here we go. You're going to have to dig a different hole. Was I not on this slide when I was pointing to the soil? Sorry, here it is. There's the wet spots. And we just use those watermarks from the drip tape. We space them on purpose for the distance apart we want to plant. Generally 8 to 9 inches is really good for zinnias. You can go wider, further apart if you're, or you can plant them wherever you want. But if you're doing rows of them like we do, 8 inches is about as close as you want to get, because you want to give them air circulation so that they don't get pests or diseases. And did anyone want to ask me a question about how deep to plant them? Yes.
Go back to the seeds.
Yes, I can do that too.
So you said a
heat mat, a towel, another tray, or a towel. Yes, a tray, paper towels. Then I put in the tray, just lay it right in there. I have a growing tray that I use. Get the paper towels wet, cover it so that you don't lose the humidity. And this is, I think, 24, 36 hours after I did it. They sprout so fast. They're so ready to go. Okay, and then in terms of, we get back to here, the depth of a plant, what's really cool about zinnias is I don't have to plant this at the top of the soil like you do with most plants. I don't want to plant it up here, that wouldn't be particularly effective, but I can plant this really deeply. It doesn't matter if it got leggy, because plants like tomatoes, if you didn't know this, zinnias like tomatoes will grow roots from their stems. So no matter how far down you plant it, as long as it's not soaking wet, this will grow roots. And that's something you're going to want to know in a minute. We'll remember that. Zinnias grow roots. So here are some zinnias in our farm. They're planted. You can kind of see these little squares. This is called Horton Nova netting. Keeps the plants from getting blown around. We get 80 mile an hour winds where we are because we're close to the mountains, so they have to have support. But this is kind of what we use for that. And then if you just have a zinnia, but it's going to get 4 feet tall, you may want to provide some support. If you look over here in the garden, you'll see there's some metal support sort of worked in. Over here by the foxglove, you can see a little wooden dowel. These are the kinds of things you can do to help support your plants if you live where it's windy and they may, blow over. So how do you grow them? Well, if you added the amendments before planting, like we talked about, you just get to sit back and watch the show. You've already done all the work. You've got your water going, and you just get to look at the beauty of whatever it is you're growing. So some farmers spray their fields with fertilizers, usually organic, like fish emulsion or seaweed extract or something like that. During the growing season, we do not. We leave them alone and look at there's no filter on this, by the way. I don't know how well you can see that, but this was sunset and it was spectacular. There's nothing like having just massive quantities of flowers. And the only thing you want to do during the growing season is watch for pests and diseases, whatever your pests are. I imagine you guys have some slugs and snails. Talk to the experts here about how to control those. Earwigs can kind of start munching on things. That's when you see the little holes in the leaves. Those are earwigs. And then sometimes you can get powdery mildew if you've ever grown or something that gets that little white stuff on you. That's powdery mildew. That is not, doesn't just spread on its own if you're watering them overhead. The water doesn't cause them to spread, but it acts like a little train that takes them from one leaf to another as the water drops down. That's why we only water the surface. And we don't end up with any. You can usually tell when a zinnia season is done because it's starting to get powdery mildew. So September, October, you're getting the powdery mildew. And there's nothing to do about that. There's also something called alternating light. That usually, if you're really watering them overhead a lot. And if you want to know what to do about that, talk to one of the nursery pros here, and they can tell you the best things to do for those. We have our own stuff that we do. It's all organic. But I don't know what they carry or what's available here, so I can talk to them. And then I have some pro tips for you. So this is going to freak some people out, and that's okay. I'm just going to show you something. Remember we talked about the stems will grow roots? So there's this thing called pinching, and it isn't just this. We're not just doing this. Zinnias are what we call cut and come again flowers. If you cut them, you will get more. If you cut one of the regular standard sunflowers, you will be done. If you cut a stalk, you will be done. If you cut a tulip, there's no more coming. But one of the great things about zinnias is if you cut them, they will give you more blooms. So these poor guys, oh gosh, they look terrible. Look at these leaves, and they're brown and they're raggedy. I started these in February. In my house, they have been in the house, they've been out of the house, they've been in the living room, they've been in the dining room, they've been in the kitchen, they've been in the office, they've been in the shop, they've been in the greenhouse. They've been in the greenhouse, out of the greenhouse, in the shop, out of the shop. They are beat to death. They've been outside getting beat against each other because they're just in these little pods. But what's so great about this is I can look at this. Can you see this right here? Right in here? You see this little green bit here? This one here? And there's another one right there. These little green bits are stems that want to come out. So if I don't pinch this, it still wants to grow more stems. But if I pinch it, it will grow those stems more quickly. And then instead of just having one plant, one bloom or two blooms on this thing that's flopping all over the place, I'll get a nice bushy, full plant with flowers at the end of every stem. So here's how you pinch. I know it's going to hurt, but normally what we do, take this one. What I do is I look for timber. Like I said, these have really been through it. But I would take, you can see that you can grow one and get a flower up there, right? If I want to pinch them, I would actually come down to 2 or 3 sets of leaves from the bottom. So there's one, here's one that's already trying to branch. I cut it right there. Oh, it hurt her. I saw that. And then what will happen with this plant now is all these little spots, I'm going to pull off these sticky heads. And all these little spots, you can see them a little bit better now, hopefully, where there were little things trying to grow. This is now going to become much fuller, more stable plant. You can see how much they don't want to stand up under like this. Even in your garden, if you just let them grow too tall like this, they're going to want to flop over. Now, what's really great about this guy is everywhere there is a set of leaves, like right here, right down here, That was a set of leaves that I picked up, and you can see this little brancher right here. This spot, this little light spot, is called a node. That little spot, in every node on the plant, a node can have leaves, stems, or roots. So with zinnias, what I do is I would take this stem and I would cut just above the next set of leaves here. Just set him aside for a minute. And now I've got this very sad looking piece of stem. I'm going to pull off these old leaves, I'll just cut them. Being very careful not to disrupt what's going on in here. So this is called a node also. So remember, every node can do roots, stems, or leaves. Roots, stems, or leaves. This one's going to be my roots. This one's going to be my stem. And what I do with this is I take something called rock wool. Rock wool you can find at hydroponic stores. You can find it on Amazon. Some nurseries sell it too. It just literally rocks ground down and spun into a wool type cube. And soft and fluffy. It falls apart really easy if I play with it too much. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put my rock wool in some water. I'm just going to get it really wet. So it's trying to fall apart on the Make it work. It will work. Now can you see the difference in the color? It's darker, it's dripping, it's nice and feel that? It looks like a sponge. I'm going to put this in my little tray. So can you see they're all in there now? All my little guys are in there. It happens to have a little hole in the middle. I'm going to use a pen to make it a little bit bigger because my stem is kind of a chubby guy. And then what I'm going to do, this is where the magic happens. Dip the end in water. Sorry, you can't see that. It's just water. Just dippity dip. So it's a little moist. And then I'm going to take it and put it in some rooting hormone, just like that. Just stuck it in here. It's like a little white powder. You see that? And this is rooting hormone you can get at most nurseries or I'm sure. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it right in that hole. Careful not to wipe it off. I just shoved it all the way to the bottom. Now I'm just going to squeeze that wool around it. I would fill this up and then I would put a dome around it and or put it in a baggie, a Ziploc, and guess what's going to happen? I'm going to have perfect clones of this plant. So here's another one. This stem, I could cut it here. Actually, I can't. I will. With zinnias, what's so great about them is because they produce roots, you don't even really need the second node. It's tricky. It's a little bit less successful when you don't have the second node. It doesn't always work, but it works pretty well. So I'm going to do that with this one. I happen to love this zinnia. I would love to have clones of it so that I could have more of the same thing. So I have more seed that looks alike. I do the same thing even without a node. Stick it in there. And now I've got two potential clones, and I can go all the way up this stem to about here. This one actually got blown over and it grew the wrong direction, so I'm not very happy there. But oh, a pocket. There's a pocket. Put it right here. Girls gotta love their flowers. So I could go through and use the rest of this and make more clones of this particular flower. Then I would have 6 plants, or 7 plants, or 4 plants that I could grow together to keep them. I have that many more plants for me personally, for saving seed, for you, for growing more of these beautiful flowers, if that's in your garden, if that's where you want to do it. So the other thing is you don't have to wait until they're this big. So I've got these little guys here, and you can see, let's say, this one looks pretty good. So we've got, I'll use this guy. So he's got 1, 2, 3, 4 sets of leaves and a 5th set coming out. I just want to leave 2 sets of leaves. That's all I need. So I have 1, 2. I can pinch this guy right here. Goodbye. I could start that. And now this is going to force these little buds right in here. There's little teeny tiny buds in here. It's going to force them out. And when you cut your zinnias, if you're cutting them to enjoy them, you want to cut them back to that main stem. Cut them, and that'll make them bush out even more. it's like hydro. Put off the head and it keeps on coming back. So again, you just need to watch for cover. Doesn't want to play frog wall.
Oh, so one more time, double tap. No.
Double tap, triple tap, double tap. Oh, sorry. Oh, right down there. Okay. There. So again, the summertime, you want to watch for pests and disease, but like, I don't know why I went back to that, but the pinching is really good to get more flowers from your plant. It hurts us more than it hurts them. It's devastating, isn't it? We just really cut off that big flower, but it's okay because they'll come back. The other thing you might want to do to keep your plants looking lovely all summer long is when you have a plant like this, you can tell this one's been beat to death too. I could pinch this back or I could leave it to continue to grow. But can you tell the difference between these two blooms? This one is pretty weathered and tired looking, right? There's a lot of space between the petals down here on the bottom. That means it's trying to make seed. So you always want to deadhead. If you are not keeping your blooms for seed, you want to cut the old flowers off in order to encourage. It's kind of like pinching. You want to encourage it to make more blooms. And it's the same thing. I usually go right above a set of leaves right here because I know that set will put out more flowers. And then this one, I'll show you that in a second. This one is the one that I don't need anymore because, there we go, because it's done. Now my plant's going to put more energy into this flower and making other flowers. And then harvesting, I could never get zinnias to last. I could never get them to last. I had to really figure out what it's going on. We don't do it anymore. We now do it this way, where we leave all the flowers on in order to get seed. But when we want to harvest, I found out the tricks for harvesting. Zinnias have little teeny tiny hairs on their stem, which may be helpful for growing roots. I don't know about it, for sure. But if you put a little tiny just a little tiny we can run a larger scale. We use something called CBN tabs. They're made by Crizal. There's like 800 tablets in this little thing. Teeny tiny, see that? And what this is basically bleach that's been made to decompose or oxygenate or oxidize more slowly. So if you put bleach in, it doesn't last as long, and if you don't want to invest in CBN tabs, just put a little bleach in the water, just a drop. No capsules, nothing like that. That keeps those plants, it keeps the bacteria down, so it doesn't grow on all those little hairs. There's a bunch of flowers that are considered dirty flowers because they have a little texture on their stems, and that's what we use as professionals to keep the water going. So what I do is I just get, have you ever seen pictures of people walking around, like you see them on Instagram, and they've got, a bundle of flowers, walking through the farm with all these flowers on their shoulder? No. That's for Instagram. When you cut flowers, you want to put them right into a bucket of water. So if you look at this picture here on the left, I've got a bucket. It's got about 2 inches of water in it. I'm not interested in hauling around the whole bucket of water. That's bad. My bad. But if you just have a couple inches of water in there, so the stems can reach the water, put a little teeny drop of bleach in there, you cut them and you put them straight into water. Otherwise, the ends get sort of sealed over and they won't take up water as well, so you have to cut a bunch of stem off to get the water. Clock, that's literally the best time. Anytime you're harvesting things in the middle of the day for cut flowers, they're a little more stressed out because it's hotter. So most of them prefer to be harvested and then, in that cooler time of day, and then just let them sit for 20 minutes, half an hour in a cool spot out of direct sunlight. And then you can arrange with them or play with them. As I like to save my seeds, obviously, because I cross things and hybridize and grow them from seeds. What's really neat about zinnias is that every single petal, you go, where are the seeds on a zinnia? Every single petal can make a seed. And when you look at zinnias and you see those little yellow flowers in the middle, every single one of those little flowers in the middle can make a seed. Take a peek at this. This is a petal. And this little thing right here on the end of the petal, that's a potential seed. This one did not get germinated. And by the way, that's a lot of seeds. So hello, little friend. This is hopefully something you can see more easily. You don't have to wait till the end of the season. Zinnias, if they get germinated, or I'm sorry, get pollinated, these did not get pollinated because they were in my house. There were no pollinators. So they've got these little yellow bits. You can't see that from here, but if these swell up and turn a nice dark green like the one in my hand, that's a viable seed. And I pulled that out about 3 weeks after it was pollinated. So these open from the bottom first. So what they'll do is these are the oldest petals, and these are the youngest here in the middle. The oldest petals are the ones likely to have been pollinated first. Those are the ones where you can pull them out, and you can see these weren't pollinated, but I'll let you pass this around. You can see they're not thick. They don't have any thickness like a little pregnant mommy. So because they weren't pollinated, but you can see where the seed would have been. And that's one right here. So you can actually wait till the end of the season, or you can do it a little earlier if you want to save the seed. Let's say you bought a Benary's giant salmon rose, this fabulous one here from Annie's, and something came up a little different. Maybe it's got some striping to it, or it's really big, or it's putting out loads and loads and loads of petals like a push-up pop, just huge.
It's supposed to look like it's drooping into the house, the wildflowers are taking over.
But they can also be more formal. This was done by Floral Farm. This is a beautiful arrangement. It's mostly zinnias. There are some dahlias in it too, but you can see that using the principles of that Hogarth curve, that S shape. You see that it kind of comes like this and flows this way. They're using those principles, really elevating the humble zinnia, making it more luxurious. So then this is a beautiful bouquet a friend of mine just at Flower Farm did for a wedding. And these are my zinnias that I've been bringing into. You can see the colors are softer, they're more muted. And she's got kind of a wildflower mix in there with them, but they look really luscious. They look like dahlias. They look really full and they will last 7 to 10 days. But keep that water clean. You want to refresh that water. This is a little shot I took at my farm. There's Gigi the guard dog. Here, this was a year I was growing all kinds of things. Again, there's hard for me to see here. Right in there, you see these little guys right here. This white and orange patch right there, that's that angustifolia that makes that beautiful, beautiful solid border. These are Zinnia elegans back here. And we just love zinnias. If you want to learn more about them, I have a website called BlommaFlowerFarm.com. You can follow me on Instagram at Blomma Flower Farm. And if you want to know more about zinnia breeding, I have my books here.